problem was that you didn't reach out to Bill Cosby. Of course, we all know you as Rudy Huxtable on the Cosby Show all those years back, that you didn't reach out to someone you know very well, Bill Cosby, and ask him for funds.
And you know, I thought that was really interesting because it's funny. I know the Cosby Show is in reruns and everyone assumes that we're this family that like has dinner every Friday night. But the reality was I hadn't spoken to Mr. Cosby, and I felt that it would be kind of tactless, you know, very rude to call someone and be like, hey, so let me have some money right now. And honestly, with the other checks that I had lined up, I didn't feel that I needed to make that phone call.
And the other strange part, Keshia, as you well know, is that, of course, now Mr. Cosby is facing all manner of allegations. This was taped back in March,
Absolutely.
This episode, so it didn't come up then. But, I mean, you're here. I have to ask you, what do you make of those allegations? People coming out and saying this happened to them, somebody who was such a beloved character for so many years.
What I can say is this: I wasn't there. No one was there except for the two people to know exactly what happened. All I can speak to is the man that I know and I love. The fact that he has been such an example, and you can't take away from the great that he has done. You know, the millions and millions of dollars that he has given back to colleges and education, and just what he did with the Cosby Show and how groundbreaking that was.
Were you shocked by the allegations?
You know, ultimately, they're just that, allegations, and you know, it's very much been played out in the court of public opinion, but you know, we're still in America where ultimately you're innocent until proven guilty, and you know, I wasn't there. That's just not the man I know, so I can't speak to it.
Well, Keshia, good to have.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Keshia Pulliam talking about the recent allegations of her appearance on the show Apprentice, and you know, her opinion on Bill Cosby's latest situation he's been going through. And man, you know, that sister's very attractive. I thought she was very cute when she was a little girl, but she's grown up to be very attractive too. But you know, I wasn't going to do any more videos on this whole Bill Cosby thing because, first of all, for you guys that haven't heard my previous videos on Mr. Cosby, I think a lot of things he says is very insensitive towards the black community, and I feel like he says a lot of things that he doesn't take into consideration of the system and the world that we live in. He's talked down to black folks. Yes, he might have gave, you know, some money to some schools or whatever, but that doesn't give you the right to talk down to a certain group of black people or talk down to the black community as a whole, not taking into consideration of the system that we live in. And you know, like I said before, I think that, you know, we have a lot of black people out here that they'll tell you in a minute what's wrong with the black community. They'll say what we need to do, you know, these Negroes this, these niggas this, however you want to twist it to turn it. But, and I'm not saying that we can't look at ourselves and realize the things that we need to change within our community, but also I think it's a problem when people come out and they tell you every single thing that the black community needs to do or the dysfunction within our community, but they don't talk about the system that we live in the world that we live in, the things that contribute to our dysfunction. So, you know what I mean? Like I said, I wasn't going to come out and say anything anymore about this because I don't think that Mr. Cosby deserves being defended. You know, I think this is karma, and, you know, it is what it is. Let the chips fall where they may. But Keshia Pulliam came out, and you know, one of the things she was talking about on the show Apprentice is that, you know, like they said, she was basically ridiculed for not calling up Mr. Cosby. And you know, here's how I look at it: everybody does not have a dependent type of mindset. I'm one of those people. You know, I've always been the type of person, I don't care if somebody's offering me something, I'd rather go out and earn it myself and get it myself. Everybody's not the type of person to get on the phone and call mommy or daddy every time they have a crisis or they need some money or whatever. Some people don't operate that way. So for people to think that, you know, she's still Rudy Huxtable and she's able to get on the phone and, you know, just say, hey, let me borrow some money, as if that's her real life father, or she's still on the show and she's 4 years old, I think that's ridiculous. And, you know, people have to understand that the Cosby Show, that is a show. A lot of these people that you see on TV and they seem like this nice great person. A lot of times their real life personality, they're not like that. You have to realize that these people are acting. This is a job for them. Just like, you know, you guys get up and go to work in the morning, and, you know, sometimes we go to work and there's days that we don't want to be here, but hey, we got to put on that smile and we have to be professional because that is in our job title. So it's the same thing with this. You know, everybody doesn't always get along on the staff. You know, I've been on several TV productions and movies, and you know, it's not all, you know, Hallmark cards. You know, people have their disagreements, and you know, it's a job. And then there are relationships where you're very tight with some of the cast members, but I think people, you know, take that and they run with it when they see people on certain TV shows on TV, and they think that's actually how they are in real life. But you know, I mean, she basically, I think she gave a great answer as far as you know, Bill Cosby's situation right now. You know, like I said before, my opinion hasn't changed on it. I do think these women are, you know, going after Mr. Cosby for alternative motives. Now, you know, I'm not speaking from a biased point of view at all. I just told you guys my opinion on Mr. Cosby. But, you know, maybe he did. Maybe he was a little aggressive when he was younger. Because, like I said, these people that you see on TV, that's not necessarily who they are in real life. So maybe he was aggressive, but I don't think this man went around and, you know, was throwing drug pills in people's drinks and, you know, beating the hell out of women or whatever and raping them and all that. You know, I think it's alternative motives, and I think that these women are washed up and they want to check, and they figure, hey, you know, somebody like Bill Cosby, instead of him going through the whole legal procedures of everything, he'll probably just pay everybody off and be done with it. So I think this is just alternative motive from these women, and they're trying to collect a check, and they figure, hey, you know, the more people come in, the more he'll be more willing to settle, and the more checks can be distributed out. So probably any woman that has some type of romantic relationship with Bill Cosby is gonna come out, you know, and they're gonna come out here and say certain things. But I mean, you know, it is what it is. You know, I mean, I think this is Cosby's karma, but you know, I mean, a lot of people also were going at the cast of the Cosby, because they were saying, well, why haven't anybody came out? Why haven't people came out and defended Mr. Cosby? And you know, people have to understand that you don't always need to get in things that don't involve you. Sometimes you need to fall back. And I'm looking at, you know, if I was somebody that was on the Cosby Show and I was a cast member or whatever, you know, you have to be very careful of the things that you get involved with, because coming out and making certain statements, and a lot of times it can be very tarnishing to you. And not knowing everything that went down, whether you think Mr. Cosby did this or whether you think he's innocent, just stepping into the situation, say, oh, well, these women want this, and woo 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 woo, yeah, Bill Cosby, he did rape these women. A lot of times that can backfire on you, and you have to remember, these people have careers. These people want to be progressive in their careers, and a lot of times you just, you know, it's just smart to just stay out of certain situations. And you know, it's like I said, I think she gave a good answer, because she said, hey, I don't know all the information, so I'm going to just speak about Bill Cosby from what I know from me working with him, and from him just being somebody that was influential in their life at a very young age. So I think she handled that situation, you know, very well. And you know, it is cool to see one of the cast members come out and actually voice their opinion, whether it's on Mr. Cosby or whether it's on the situation. But I think people need to lay off the fact that none of the cast members have came out, because you have to understand, these are very serious allegations, and people have certain business ventures and things like that, and a lot of times you don't need to get involved with it. If it doesn't concern you, you don't need to get involved in it. That don't mean you can't pick up the phone and have a personal conversation with Mr. Cosby, but to get out here on television and, you know, you talking about rape allegations and you got your own stuff going on, hey, you have to be very careful about things like that. There's one thing, you know, talking about, you know, hip-hop music or whatever, but when we talk about rape allegations and you don't really know all the facts, you got to be very careful with that. But, I mean, that's my opinion on, you know, Keshia Knight coming out. For you guys that want to check out this full interview that was heard through the audio, I'll leave a link in the description box. You guys can give me your feedback. or whatever you think about Mr. Cosby or Keshia Knight Pulliam. But I'm out. Peace.